The American Watchmakers Clockmakers Institute presents The $1 Million Watch from the Packard Collection. Written and directed by Wes Storr, with technical assistance by Reverend Doug Mowry, and audio-video DVD programming by Nathan Dorr, with script narration by Jim Dorr. This program is based on the James Packard Watch Collection, as shown in the book The Museum of the American Watchmakers Institute by Henry B. Freed. The AWCI Press in Cincinnati, Ohio has granted permission to use pictures and text from this book to make this presentation. Since this is not a review of the complete book, I highly recommend the purchase of this book. It has detailed information about many watches in the Packard collection, including the one we are discussing today. Now, let's start at the beginning. What does Mr. Packard have to do with the watch industry? Mr. James Packard at an early age would tinker with every clock in his home. After graduating from Lehigh University as the youngest mechanical engineer in their history, he aided in developing an improved electric lamp as well as other original mechanical devices. When his brother returned from Europe with a motored tricycle, he made one for himself, and of course, added his own improvements. His friends commissioned him to make others like it. Soon he found he was in the business of manufacturing automobiles. How many here remember the Packard cars? If you say yes, you may be showing your age. These Packard cars made James Ward Packard quite rich. He could afford to buy, or have custom-made, anything he wanted. Mr. Packard's interest in timepieces grew, and he desired to collect them. He was not interested in collecting antique watches like most collectors. He preferred to commission the finest watchmakers of his time to produce timepieces to his exacting and singular specifications. One of these watches is shown here. Mr. Packard asked Patek Philippe of Geneva, Switzerland, to make this watch for him, including the features he wanted. Let's see, what would you want in a watch if money were not a concern? Mr. Packard said he would like the following features. Incidentally, features are referred to as complications. The more complications a watch has, the more valuable it is. As I started to say, Mr. Packard wanted the following features. He wanted hour, minute, and second hands, of course. Also, it would be nice to know what hour and minute the tide comes in and goes out. Also, the moon phases, which we refer to as the first quarter, second quarter, etc. A hand to indicate the equation of time would be another nice feature. This hand measures, or we should say indicates, the difference between the mean solar time and true solar time. Does that sound like a complication? More about that later. Of course, he would want a calendar, that is, the month, day, and date. Naturally, this must adjust for leap years and for shorter than 31-day months. The watch should also be a minute repeater. That means even in a dark room one can push a lever and the hours, quarters, and exact minutes will be sounded. Incidentally, Mr. Packard also said that on some nights in his hometown of Warren, Ohio, he looked out his bedroom window and could not see the stars. So it would be another nice feature to have a chart showing the stars on the backside of this watch. Mr. Packard, in his later years, willed his collection to the Cleveland Museum of Art. However, on his deathbed, he learned of the aims and ideals of the Horological Institute of America from Paul Moore, then secretary of the Horological Institute and a good friend of Mr. Packard. He then asked that this institute be named custodian of his collection. Upon his death in 1928, the will's executors, with the release of the Cleveland Museum and the kindly assistance of Mrs. Packard, honored this wish. To make a long story short, two horological institutes merged, to become the American Watchmakers Institute. It is now the American Watchmakers Clockmakers Institute. Thus, the American Watchmakers Clockmakers Institute then owned this Packard collection of 31 watches. This collection included the Patek Philippe watch known as Exhibition P11, which is the one we are talking about today. Features of this Patek Philippe. This is an astronomical, perpetual calendar, equation of time, minute repeater, pocket watch. This watch is 19-line, 1 11/16 inches in diameter. It was the most complicated watch ever produced by Patek Philippe at that time, and one of the most complicated watches in the world. It contains a perpetual calendar, a minute repeating mechanism. It rings the time on 3 gongs. It contains a star chart on the reverse side of the watch, the equation of time complication, the moon phases, and the time of sunrise and sunset. The movement contains 37 jewels. The case is open face, 18-karat gold. Notice the position of the 12 contains the moon phases, with numbers above to indicate the age of the moon phase. The month is indicated by a hand that is pointing to the month of July. Down at the 6th position we see days and date of the month. It shows Thursday the 10th. Thursday, July 10th. We see it's 9 minutes and 29 seconds after 10 o'clock. This watch will compensate for uneven months and even leap years accurately up to the year 2100. Notice the small dial at the 9 position. It tells us that the sun rose at 4:26. And at the 3 position, we see the sun will set at 7:25 the evening of the same day. Notice the gold-colored hand at 10:21. It has a sunburst design and indicates the difference between the mean solar time, which is the time we go by, and true solar time, the time that might be told by a sundial. The difference between them is called the equation of time. Equation of time is the difference between the time observed on a sundial as compared to that time displayed by a precision timepiece. Because the Earth does not rotate around the sun in a perfect circular path, but one describing an ellipse, the length of each day is not equal, compared to a watch which displays an average of sun time as mean solar time. About the 12th of February, the sun noon arrives about 14 minutes later than the clock noon. On November 2nd, sun noon arrives 16 minutes earlier than the clock noon. The proximity of the leap year affects these dates slightly. There are 4 days in the year when sundials and clocks agree. These dates are close to April 16th, June 12th, September 2nd, and December 24th. Now we turn the watch over. The inside back has a celestial chart which shows over 500 stars in 6 different sizes according to their magnitude. The heavenly scene moves daily in exact duplication of the celestial movements as they occur above the city of Warren, Ohio. This inside lid can be opened to show the complete sky chart. While in this position, however, we can see the engraved inscription on this inside lid, which reads North, South, East, and West, in their positions as observed by Mr. Packard when at home. Underneath this chart is inscribed, calculated for Warren, Ohio, 42 degrees and 20 minutes, number 198023. Made for J.W. Packard, Warren, Ohio, by Patek Philippe and Company, Geneva, Switzerland, 1927. This watch was the first ever to be custom built to the buyer's specifications. This collection of 31 pieces has been on display over the years at various museums, including the Smithsonian. Since the AWI needed to improve its financial and educational position, it was decided to offer one piece of the Packard collection, exhibit number 11, for sale. This one watch cost Mr. Packard $16,000. It took 5 years to make, from 1922 to 1927. AWI offered this watch for sale. It sold in 1988 for $1.3 million. The original maker of the watch, the Patek Philippe Company, purchased it to celebrate their 150th anniversary. Shown here is a view of this watch with the dial removed. It may be interesting to know that the face of the watch is called a dial. People and clocks have faces, but watches have dials. However, this watch is called an open face watch. Notice the top area shows what becomes the moon phase when the dial is in place and covers the right areas. In the central area, below center, are two large wheels which drive the pinions at the 9 and 3 positions to activate the sunrise and sunset hands. This is the view of the back of the watch with the sky dial removed. In the picture we see several wheels, 3 of which are driven by the barrel to help drive the star chart. There are 500 stars controlled by some of the various parts shown. AWI member Joseph Beyer, Ph.D., February 12, 1908 to January 14, 1990, had the privilege to service this watch. The following are a few pictures of this watch taken at that time. Figure 1. This is the same Packard Collection watch number 11, dial side view. Visible are 12 indicators, 11 hands, and a moon phase disc. Figure 2. The rear cover. Note the engraved sunburst and initials for James Ward Packard. The minute repeater slide is to the left. Notice the monogram in the center. It has the last initial in the center and the first and middle initials on the left and right. This is the correct way to do a monogram. Figure 3. View of astronomical dial through the oval window of the rear inner cover. Note points of the compass, watch number, and date. Inscription reads, "Made for J.W. Packard by Patek Philippe and Company, Geneva, Switzerland," with longitude shown for Warren, Ohio. Figure 4. Complete astronomical dial shown with oval window removed. This dial rotates showing the positions of the stars over Warren, Ohio at any given time. Figure 5. Under the dial view, showing the dial plate with wheels and levers to operate the several hands and the moon phase disc. Figure 6. Disc to which the star dial is attached. Figure 7. Star disc removed, showing part of the star dial train. Figure 8. Further disassembly of the star dial train and true solar time train. Figure 9. Under the dial view showing parts of the time train, repeater train, and beginning of star dial train. Figure 10. Further disassembly of under the dial trains, minute repeater, cannon pinion with 4 quarter-minute snails, hour snail, and quarter and minute racks. Figure 11. Upper plate view with balance assembly removed and star dial assembly removed. Several train bridges remain. Figure 12. Upper plate view almost completely disassembled. Minute repeater train at 10 o'clock position to be disassembled. This article appeared in the USA Today newspaper on Wednesday, September 14, 1988. It basically says, a pocket watch built for auto tycoon James Packard in the 1920s for $16,000 was bought Tuesday for $1.3 million by the Swiss company that made it. For more information on other Packard collection watches, please consider the purchase of Henry Freed's book, the Museum of the American Watchmakers Institute. Because of the sale of this watch and others from the Packard collection, the American Watchmakers Clockmakers Institute had a chance to build this new headquarters building in Harrison, Ohio. This building houses a museum, watchmaking and clockmaking classrooms, and a very complete library. This completes our presentation today, but could be the beginning for those interested in a career in horology, that is, watchmaking and/or clockmaking. Maybe you too can make a famous watch, and maybe find a million reasons to do so.